The Toronto Raptors headed into Chicago on Monday night to face off against the Bulls, a really tough home-and-home back-to-back. Down numbers, decimated by injuries, exhausted. Would the Raptors have enough legs and enough manpower to make it 2-0 against the Bulls? Holding DeMar DeRozan to 9 points was a really promising start. Unfortunately for the Raptors, the Bulls had Zach Lavine back in the lineup. He pours in 30 points in an efficient 32 minutes, and this game wasn't really that close. The Bulls run away with it in the third quarter. We're going to break down the game for you. We're going to give you my 3 key moments of the game, 3 key takeaways, and my final thoughts. If you're new around here, my name's Robert. This is Pensari Basketball. Make sure to hit subscribe and like, grab your coffee, and let's get to it. Yes, the rebounds were a bit of an issue for the Raptors, but I do think that 49-31 is a little misleading. The Raptors just missed a lot more shots than the Bulls. They do win the battle of the turnovers, 21-14. They get more steals. They win the possession battle. They end up taking 5 more shots. Unfortunately, the Raptors' offense just was not very efficient, which is becoming a bit of a recurring trend in this very young season. In terms of individual performances, the Raptors were buoyed by their backcourt. Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. combined for 46 points, an efficient 46 points, and both players end up shooting over 50%. Unfortunately for them, the front court really seemed to struggle. Barnes goes 2 for 9, and Christian Koloko really had some issues finishing in the paint tonight. And in terms of bench production, Precious Achiuwa, the only bench player to crack double digits. Honestly, it's a little misleading, and we're going to get into it with our moments of the game. It's always complicated in a team sport to say, well, this guy played well and this guy didn't, because one guy playing well obviously leads into another guy not playing well. For our first moment of the night, Fred VanVleet checks in for Delano Banton at the 7:32 mark of the second quarter. The Raptors are down 42-38. They've weathered the storm with VanVleet off the floor. Banton's out of the game. And you can tell with Fred VanVleet playing in front of the home crowd, having gotten off to a hot start, that he entered the game at the 7:32 mark thinking, I'm going to dominate possessions for the next 5 minutes. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out for the Raptors. He gets blocked on his very first possession by Ayo Dosunmu. And within 5 minutes of Fred VanVleet dominating the ball, dominating possessions, sort of dribbling too much, doing a little bit too much on his own, too many ISOs, too many shots. Unfortunately, within 5 minutes, the Raptors find themselves down 13. The Bulls never really gave up the lead after this point. For our second moment of the night, the same quarter, Scotte Barnes goes up for a floater, doesn't get the foul, really frustrated with the referee, comes down on his ankle for what feels like the 35th time in 3 games. You can just tell that ankle is really bothering him. He has no lift on his shot at all right now. He's really giving clear blow-bys, but it feels like for 3 minutes he just completely forgot about the ankle and just decided to play as hard as he could. And I think he gave it everything he could. And we started seeing little bits of the offense that we were seeing in Atlanta and San Antonio when things were moving so well for the Raptors. And suddenly he's zipping the ball up and down the court. Everyone's touching the ball. Of course, around the 1 minute mark, he has that huge dunk on Vucevic. And at the 38-second mark, the Raptors take that once daunting 13-point lead and cut it down to 3 as Gary Trent Jr. swishes a 3 on a Barnes pass. The third moment of the night comes in garbage time. DeMar DeRozan dribbling up the court, has a full head of steam, easily could have gone to the basket. No one would have blamed him. And he decides to stop short and take a shot clock turnover, which is a really classy move that not a lot of NBA players do because they don't like turnovers on the box score. But DeRozan decides to do the sportsman-like thing, and I wish I could tell you that that was our third moment of the night because it's a nice, classy move by a really good dude that I've come to respect a lot over the years. Unfortunately, our moment of the night comes 11 seconds later as Delano Banton is faced with a decision, and he makes the wrong one. So either dribble out the shot clock like a good sportsman or take an uncontested 3 with the defense relaxing. So he decides, hey, I've missed a few shots in a row, and I could really use this 3 to pad my stats. And Ayo Dosunmu kind of sees what he's doing, and he decides to block him. And look, no offense to Delano Banton, I know it was his birthday and maybe he just wanted 3 points, but to me that's a really punk move, and I think he kind of got what he deserved there. And unfortunately for the Raptors and Raptor fans, that was somewhat of a poetic ending for what was a terrible night. So let's get into my 3 key takeaways. My first takeaway of the night is that we need to do something about Scotte Barnes' ankle. Honestly, I ranted about this in the previous post game, so I'm not going to spend too much time repeating myself here, but I just think that if you're the Raptors, you have a lot riding on this young man's future, and the worst thing that you would want right now is a compensation injury. Now, Scottie and Christian Koloko were both positives for the Raptors tonight in terms of positive plus minus, and for this game being as bad as it was, you would say, well, even on one ankle, he's helping you out. I think sometimes the box score lies to you. Scotte Barnes was not a positive or a net positive today on offense or defense. He was shooting poorly from the field. I think the Chicago Bulls sort of understand that he's a bit of a weak link on defense right now. They're attacking him on defense. And look, this is sometimes why plus minus is a little misleading. In the first quarter, Barnes gave up a couple of clear blow-bys, and then he went to the bench, and the Bulls proceeded to blow the game open. So, look, he's not going to get the negatives for that, and the other guys who checked in for him and or were on the floor are going to be the ones who are going to suffer the wrath. But basketball is a game of rhythm, and unfortunately, if you're giving blow-bys to guys, if you're not rotating, it really does have a cascading effect. I would like to see him shut down for the next 2 to 3 weeks. You're not going to win a championship next week or next month, and I would like to see him and Pascal healthy going into the new year so that the Raptors can make a push just like they did last year. I don't care if we're a play-in team or I don't care if we're first. I really don't care, to be honest, but I don't think that he's helping you as much as the box score suggests that he is right now. I think he's a real target. Teams know that he's injured and they are attacking that ankle. On offense, teams know that he doesn't really have burst, that he can't really shoot right now. He was shooting 52% from three just a few days ago, and now he's probably down into the low 30s. I mean, he just can't buy a shot right now, and shooting is linked to your ankles. Like, there's not a lot you can do on one ankle as a basketball player, so I don't understand what the Raptors are doing, and I'm just going to keep complaining about this until they do something about it. My second takeaway of the night is that it feels like Christian Koloko is now more than just a ceremonial starter. A lot of teams do this, that in the place of an injury, they will elevate a third stringer up to being a starter. I think Hubie Brown was pretty famous for doing this back in the day because they don't want to disrupt the rhythm that the bench players have of coming off the bench. So, look, when Christian Koloko started for Scotte Barnes in Miami, the decision seemed to be presented as we want to put Christian in the starting lineup because we want to keep Precious and Chris Boucher off the bench. But it has felt increasingly as the season has gone on that when the other team goes on a run and or when the Raptors are in a tight spot, it feels over and over again that it is Chris Boucher and or Christian Koloko that are getting the call for Nick Nurse. And today it was Christian Koloko with 21 minutes. Despite a horrible shooting night and a lot of struggles finishing around the rim, he had more minutes tonight than Otto Porter, Thaddeus Young, Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa. I mean, if he has really earned that level of trust from Nick Nurse this early into the season, that's a really promising sign not only for him, but also for the Raptors franchise. For my third takeaway of the night, I hate hero ball. I absolutely can't stand watching this brand of basketball. It is very ugly. It is not effective. Look, I remember a very long time ago watching Jason Capono shooting threes in an open gym, okay? We were watching a practice and Capono came out early and he's just swishing threes from all over the place. And I remember sitting there with my girlfriend at the time and we're watching this guy hit threes. And I think we started counting and he was at about 17 or 18 in a row. And she asked this question and I'll never forget it. She said, why doesn't he just take all the shots if he's so good at making all the shots? It struck me at that moment. I didn't have the perfect answer for her back then. I sort of just said, well, he's not really that good. But I didn't know how to explain it that many years ago. But having now thought about this for a few years, I do have an answer for her now. So if she's listening, this is my answer. You cannot run an offense through Jason Capono because Jason Capono can shoot but can't do anything else. And that's sort of how I feel about Fred VanVleet. Now, I know a lot of fans won't agree with me, but Fred VanVleet is absolutely not a point guard. There are point guards in high school who can make basic entry passes and alley-oop passes that he cannot make right now. Okay, Fred has played off the ball a lot in his career, and there's a good reason for that, because that's what he is. He's an undersized shooting guard masquerading as a point guard. And I know that I am one for positionless basketball, and the concept of a point guard is something that I have rallied against many times. But you cannot initiate your offense through a guy who cannot make a pass to save his effing life And you cannot run the offense through a guy who is not a threat to score in the paint. When you consider the greatest point guards of all time, there is a triple element to their game where they can either kill you with passing, kill you in the paint, and or kill you with shooting. There's got to be a component of that. Mismatch generation is everything in basketball. Mismatch and advantage hunting is everything. If you cannot see the mismatches and or create mismatches, you're not an ideal first option. I don't care how well you shoot. Just like Jason Kapono cannot run an offense, just like I wouldn't run an offense through Kyle Korver, I don't want to run an offense through Fred VanVleet. Unfortunately, there is an identity crisis on this team. Whenever a guy goes out, it seems like the next guy decides, I'm going to play just like the first guy. It feels to me that there's a lot of selfishness on this team, and there's a lot of selflessness on this team. I'll give you an example of selflessness. Scotte Barnes has taken 3 3-pointers from like 70 feet away. You don't think that Scotte Barnes realizes that that's cratering his 3-point percentage? Of course he does. He knows that. But why wouldn't you take that shot? A lot of NBA players do not take that shot because 38% 3-point shooters earn more money than 35% 3-point shooters. That's why they don't take that shot. But winners who love basketball will always take that shot. You know what's not a winning habit? Taking a 3 when the other team took a turnover in order to give you the ball and not run up the score on you. Taking a 3 to pad your stats. That's selfish. Dribbling the ball around and hoisting up shots in the paint because you're trying to get your numbers on a night where, you see an opportunity to pad your stats and boost up your scoring averages because you felt butthurt for a few days because everyone asked to trade you. Look, if I'm Nick Nurse, and I'm not Nick Nurse, but if I'm Nick Nurse, I am running this offense through the post. I'm running this offense through Thaddeus Young, Scotte Barnes, and I'm running Fred VanVleet off the ball anyways. There's no chance in hell that I am running an offense through Fred VanVleet ever in my life. And the Raptors insist on doing it. And look, he's going to put up his stats because he's the one touching the ball. He's the one getting all the good shots. And all the other players are going to struggle because they're the ones getting passes from him being tossed at their feet, out of the shooting pocket. Look, there is a game within the game. If you are a casual observer of basketball, there are 2 things effectively that you focus on at any given time when you're watching a basketball game. Number 1 is the ball. Number 2 is the score. So I understand that if you see this game from that perspective of ball and score, that if one guy passes the ball to another guy and that guy scores and that counts as an assist, then that's a great thing for you. Focusing on those 2 variables, you might say, well, that a guy who had 5 out of 10 had a better night than the guy who had 4 out of 10. But I personally don't look at it that way. I never have and I never will. I think the only way that you can judge an offense is the number of quality opportunities that it generates. The triangle offense was predicated on this. Motion offenses, Princeton offense. There's a lot of offensive systems in the NBA and in college basketball that are just predicated on this idea of generating good opportunities, favorable opportunities. And you get opportunities when you move the ball. Steve Kerr was a really big proponent of this. When he went into Golden State, one of the hugest reasons that Draymond Green got elevated into the starting lineup was because he was so good at moving the ball. And his ability to move the ball around created a sort of culture of passing. Draymond is a huge reason for culture driving the Golden State Warriors. The ball is like a magnet, right? Within basketball, that's the way my coaches explained it to me. The ball is a magnet. People are paying attention to you. And the less you move it, the more attention it sort of draws. So unless you're holding it in order to move it, like if you're just holding it to hold it in order to sort of scan the room and figure it out, I think you sort of kill offensive flow. The other thing is, if you've noticed, there's a lot of NBA players who sort of touch the ball, right? If you've noticed during free throws, they'll sort of touch the ball, maybe because they haven't touched the ball in a while. Touching the ball is a really important thing in basketball. When you lose feel of the ball and then you don't touch the ball for like 6-7 possessions, you're running up and down the court, you fall out of rhythm. Now, I know that a lot of modern NBA offenses are predicated on one guy sort of just dribbling the ball around, like James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Luka Doncic, whatever. But Fred VanVleet is not in that class of individual. And while those teams may be able to sort of win, last I checked, none of those guys have rings. I will, however, tell you who does have a ring. Tim Duncan has a ring. Manu Ginobili has a ring. Steph Curry and Draymond Green, they have rings. I'm trying to say that there is a way that produces wins, and then there's a way that produces stats. And when the Raptors won a championship, Marc Gasol, Kyle Lowry, right, facilitators. The culture of this team was unselfish, right? If you really look at the guys who were leading the locker room during that championship year, the culture was not stats driven. I would like to think that the culture of this team means that someone is going to go up to Delano Banton and say, don't do that again. But I'm not sure that culture exists right now. Now, I know that there are a lot of unselfish players on this team that do not think about their stats or the next contract all the time. They really are trying to play the right way. Otto Porter Jr., Thaddeus Young, Christian Koloko, right? Justin Champagnie. To some extent also Malachi Flynn. I think he really plays the right way. Scotte Barnes, OG Anunoby. It feels like there's two factions, two streams of thought on this team. And it feels like every single time the top guy goes out. So we saw it last year with Pascal Siakam, right? Siakam goes out, and what happens? Right? To start the season, OG Anunoby plays the Siakam role. We see all these isolations. OG Anunoby last year, and probably this year as well, one of the worst isolation players in the NBA. Didn't stop him from playing that style. This is not a recipe for success, and while, yes, you can win some games playing this way, I do believe that offenses that generate better looks will always win out in the long term. So I would like for us as a fan base to stop judging everything on a game-by-game basis, that when a guy makes 35 points, that he's great, and when he hits 0, he's terrible. I don't care if you have 0 points and you took 11 really good shots. I think that's a really positive night. And I don't care if you have 35 points when you took 16 fadeaways as your teammates watched as you dribbled the clock out. I don't care if you made all those shots. They say it's a make or miss league. I think that's very misleading. Anyway, those are my thoughts for this game. On to the next one. If you're the Raptors, get well Scotte Barnes, get well Pascal Siakam. I hope for health for this team. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the other videos on this channel. Some of them are like this. Some of them are a little bit more thought-provoking, a little bit more detailed. Some of them took a really long time to make, including video breakdowns on Scotte Barnes and Christian Koloko. Be sure to check out all that good stuff. Make sure to hit subscribe and like on your way out. And let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this loss? And do you think I'm off my rocker with all this, ISO stuff? Anyways, talk to you later. Peace.